Welcome to the first ever Football Rumours Podcast, starring the main man that is Ed01 and myself, Benny Baller. In the first episode, we're going to discuss what we expect from Liverpool this season. So, Ed01, what do we expect this season?
Well, probably the Benny Baller to make a mistake and record it in the wrong format, so we have to do this podcast all over again. But apart from that, yeah, I think top four is the aim this season, isn't it?
Do you know what? I think I remember you saying top four.
Yeah, I'll get a touch of deja vu here. Yeah,
Wow. So, top four then, is that purely because we must?
we've got to. Let's be honest. If you don't make it this time round, we're in trouble, aren't we? You know, we're financially already far behind the others, and they're building the new stadium. It's going to cost a lot of money. We've seen what happened with Arsenal, and they were doing it, so we have to have top four to compete.
Hmm. Do you realistically expect us to get top four?
Realistically, no. I, I just can't. You look at I mean. Okay, United were poor last season. They played some awful football, but they've brought a whole new midfield, and that was the major weakness last season. So they're going to be a lot stronger. Then you look at Arsenal, and their major weakness was a keeper. They bought Czech. Okay, he had a bit of a mare at the weekend, but he's not going to have that every week, is he? And then there's Chelsea. They've got Jose, and they're miles ahead of us anyway. And then the City, they look to be absolutely on fire. And Yaya Toure looks like he's bothered this season. So, yeah, no, I just can't see as much as I'd like to think we'd beat one of them to the top four. I just can't see it happening. Can you?
Well, no, but no one expected us to finish second last year, so anything's possible, but I'll have to be with you on the realistic expectation that, yeah, I just don't see it happening. But,
Did we finish second last year? Because I seem to remember us finishing a lot lower than that. Just a point, mate.
well,
Oh,
see,
last year, not last season.
I like to
Yeah,
completely
sorry.
forget last season, you see.
Yeah.
That's not, I don't remember it at all. It was one big nightmare.
It's a bit like the first podcast ever that you've recorded this as, even though it's actually technically the second. But we won't mention the fact that that you got it wrong. No, we won't mention that.
I'll just
We'll
stop
just
talking and
sweep
leave it to you,
it
shall
off.
I? Okay, so season before last, no one expected us to get second, but we did. But we got to say it's purely down to Suarez, surely.
Purely, it was that I think it was the pressing that makes the main difference. You know, the way we attacked was brilliant. It was Suarez and Sturridge and Sterling were able to work well together. But most of it was down to winning the ball back high up the pitch. So we were in an attacking third every time we had the ball. We weren't being, when you win the ball back right in their half, you're already in a position to attack, and you're usually winning it back from a player who's in a dangerous position to them, not to you, obviously, but to them. You're in a position where you're putting them in danger. You're putting players out the game when you win it. So without that, we just look a bit toothless.
Where has that gone?
That,
I've not seen it for a while now.
I haven't seen. I mean, it was just those few months, and it's odd because I mean, this is something Brendan Rodgers did. It was something Brendan Rodgers worked on in training constantly. He'd talk about what he'd do is he'd say to him, "You press for 5 seconds after when you first lose the ball. You press for 5 seconds. If you don't regain the ball within those 5 seconds, you drop off, drop back into your own half. You know what I mean? You get into your defensive shape, and then you look for the trigger." There's a huge list of these triggers, things like a poor touch, a pass going slightly astray, things like that, that forces, that when you see these triggers, then you press again. But none of that happened last season at all. Not at any point did I see any sign of those, and constantly saw the triggers. I was there thinking, right, they're going to press now, and nothing.
You're
It's
talking
quite odd.
things like when you see a defender try to control the ball on his chest, you got to be pressing that.
Yeah, yeah. If the ball's going back to a centre back on the, even if he's on the halfway line, or if he's in his own half, wherever he is, if he's the last man and the ball's going up high, you've got to be on him straight away. You've got to have players pressing because it's going to be a difficult thing for him to control it, and then he's going to hurry the pass. So you're pressing him and the people around him that he can pass to, because the chances are that pass is going to go astray, and you pick it off and you're at them straight away. And that's something that we did really well with Suarez and that, and yet there was no sign of it last season. I understand if Balotelli was up front because he's lazy.
Well,
and he's not going to take.
But I see signs of Balotelli with Benteke against Stoke. He were a statue when we didn't have the ball. He didn't come out the centre circle. Yeah, granted, when we had the ball, he made some good movements. But without the ball, he just looked like Balotelli again.
Oh, Yamasai's just scored for United as well, just to ruin it. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, Benteke. I mean, it was clearly something he'd been told to do, though, for whatever reason, because the whole team were the same. It's not like, you look at Henderson and Milner and you'd expect them to be pushing, because that's what they do. They press. They're high energy players who race around. They don't throw themselves into tackles much, but they do get in, they block and they harry and they hustle. And there was nothing. They were just dropping off. And it just doesn't work for me. Not at this level.
Do you think that's why there's all the negativity on the site this week? Despite the win, we're seeing more signs of the same stuff from last year.
Yeah, it is because of last year. If it wasn't, if we'd played really well at the end of the season and we'd finished off the season with the flourish, or even if we'd been playing badly but we'd been picking up results like we were for a while in mid-season, then people wouldn't be so down. But because we played badly and we gave away loads of, we gave away loads of bad results and all that, and it was a really poor finish to the season. So to see us playing badly still, it's a worry.
What
at least we got the
did you see against Stoke?
Well, we got the 3 points. And, there was signs that we defended set pieces, for instance, the Sean O'Driscoll way with the holding hands and working together, timing it. So there was a lot. I mean, that was a huge improvement over the way we've been defending set pieces since the days of Rafa was the last time we were able to defend a set piece. I know people moaned about the zonal system he used, but we didn't concede many goals under him. So it can't have been that bad. And we haven't defended well since his days.
Well, you touched on O'Driscoll there. What do you think he is going to bring to a team this year?
His main focus is, he'll get them communicating. So they'll work together and they'll communicate together, and they won't have any trouble with, when the back line pushes up, they should all know to push up, rather than, as was usual in recent years, where they one would push up, one would drop off, and the other two would be nowhere to be seen usually, which is a big issue with the modern fullback, is they're not there. They're always gone missing, but there was no communication. And so you'd see Skirtle dropping 5 yards back, and the other defender would have pushed up, and Skirtle would push it, suddenly go, go for a rash tackle. And the other defender would be dropping off, assuming he was dropping off. There was just no communication, and that's one thing that O'Driscoll emphasises massively. And also, I noticed the kick out from the goalkeeper to Benteke.
That happened an awful lot, didn't it?
Yeah, and that is something I would think that came from him. Because that's one of those things. He says, if you've got a big man up front, you turn them early, because if your keeper's not particularly good, that's a nice, easy way of keeping it, of putting it, you put it up there for him to contest. That's one of the things he always says is a good way to do it. It's not all about who, you do have to sometimes look longer. You can't always pass it around short when you're not unless you're really good quality technically. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with lifting it in, like Stoke were doing for Diouf a lot. They lifted it in behind our defence, and they were catching them flat-footed a lot.
That's always going to be Skirtle's weakness, isn't it?
Yeah, and Lovren the same, which is why I'm not keen on them as a pairing. So I don't understand why why buy Lovren to partner Skirtle? It makes no sense.
Well,
You've already bought Saka.
I know when we bought Lovren, my consensus of the idea was because he were right-footed, he were going to play next to Sacco, and I thought that's going to be our partnership now for the next 5 or 6 years. And him coming out of Southampton, he looked a nasty centre back. He looked really good, and well, I don't know what Brendan's thinking, but he spends big on PSG and France international. I think he was the captain at PSG or the vice captain, and then he's replacing him 1 year later with Lovren. I mean, you can blame Brendan as well, but why did the club sanction that move?
If that is one thing I really don't understand. It's just like there's nobody at the club that's planning it out. Nobody. I mean, yeah, Rodgers has got to take some of the blame for their terrible transfers because he's picking the players and he's signing off on the final thing. But who's over him? Who's the oversight planning out the transfers? We're buying all these young players, 23, 22-year-olds, when you need finished articles to play, and then you only need a couple to play, and then your kids can still break through and still have hope they'll get through, and they can help ease them in. But all we've got is just a bit of a mess.
Definitely,
We've got a young squad. That's fine, but there's nobody there. There's Milner to provide experience, and that's it, really.
And you say about how we need the complete player, the finished player, to help the youth through. The problem is we're signing players that are competing with our youth, so it's literally a waste of time putting the effort into the academy.
Yeah, because they're not going to want to. They're not going to want to help teach a youngster how to be better than them because they're going to lose their place to them if they're better. So why would they want to? If you're 29, 30 years old, then you don't. Or like Gary Mack when he came to us at 35, that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to ease them through because he knew he was at the end of his career. So he was, just helping them with his experience. But what we've got now is a bunch of kids that have got no experience. And
Even
nobody's
our
getting
experienced
experience
ones have
because
no experience.
yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the most experienced players we've got now is Henderson. So basically, we've got Milner who barely played for the last few years. So he's not had much experience over the last few years. And well, who else have we got?
Well, I guess it's
Skirtle.
Skirtle, yeah. And when Skirtle's
Yeah,
your go-to experienced guy, then you got to worry.
yeah. Colo Toure. Well, I like Colo Toure. I think he's a lovely chap and all that, and he's got experience and all that. But yeah, he's not what you want as the experienced guy leading the players through,
I
is
don't
he?
mind the role he has until it's when he's on the bench, because I just see no point in that. Why is Ilori not on the bench ahead of Torre?
That's that's the $100 million question. Where's Ilori?
Well, that's
What's
the thing.
happened to him?
Me and
What's he
Edo1, we
done?
have a bone to pick with Brendan on Ilori, and it seems a lot of the posters would as well. He looks a
Well,
fantastic player,
yeah, I
and
know you've got a bit of a hard on for him.
well,
You said he's nice in shorts and that. Yeah, we know all that, but
he's my kind of guy. Let's put it that way.
yeah, we've
But
heard.
I mean, like I said, I told you, I read that he's broke the 60-meter sprint record at Sporting Lisbon. He's technically fantastic. I mean, we see that in the Euros this summer. He's tall, quick, technical. Uh, it doesn't come across as rash. He comes across quite clever. So what's he got to do to get a game?
Um, that I just don't know. I just wonder what he's done to Brendan. I really do. He must have done something to upset him. Maybe he had his fake tan. Because I just don't understand what he's got against him. It makes no sense. I mean, this is a man who claims to want to play a high line of defence, with a ball playing centre halves, and yet he
Your two
buys one.
fastest centre backs are on the bench. Well,
Yeah,
not
and he
even on the
buys
bench.
one.
Hmm.
He buys a young one that's like perfect for the system, and then just won't give him a chance. It's bizarre. It really is. I
I,
just don't understand what the problem is.
I'm sick and tired of the notion that Brendan brings through the youth, because he doesn't. I mean, Flanagan was forced upon him due to injuries, and credit to Flanagan, he played so well, he kept his place. Brendan couldn't demote him. Sterling only played because of injuries, and I think I saw on the site not long ago that if I wasn't injured at the time, it would have been him given the chance and not Sterling.
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah, that's correct.
Hmm. So
I
how?
was always thought of as a better player.
Yeah. It's funny how
But
it
I mean,
how it's
Sterling
gone
got
then.
the jump before Brendan came in. Sterling was already in the side when Brendan came in, so you can't really give him credit for that one. That's Dalglish. You've got to give Dalglish credit for that one. He put him
Dalglish is
in
the
and
one that
said,
gave him his debut, isn't he?
"Yeah,"
I think it was
and he
the
was in.
final game of the season against Fulham. I think he made his debut. Correct me if
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
wrong, but
he was in the side. Everybody knew he was, and he was given his debut because I wasn't fit and that. But like, the one that gets me is Flanagan. He tried to sell him. He wanted him gone.
is that
Flanagan was the one that said,
before
"No, I'll stay in
he
my
had his great
place."
spell or after his great spell?
Before he had his great spell, he was trying to sell him,
Then that just
and he
shows
tried
that
to
he's
sell
not watching
Henderson.
enough of the youth teams.
I mean, tried to sell Henderson, and look how what he turned into.
Mm.
I mean, it's just like I just don't think he watches enough of the team at all. Anybody. I just don't. I don't think he dedicates enough time to watching football, and that's why he struggles so much tactically because
That's
he's
because
not
he
spending
spends
his
too
time
much
watching
time
and
flirting
learning.
with his secretary.
Yeah, or on the tan, whatever. I don't care what it is. He's not devoting enough time to the job clearly because he's not. He's using statistical analysis and stuff instead of watching games. That's
Mm.
the problem. I mean, you can use statistical analysis. That's fine, but it should be as well as watching players, as well as watching games and learning. I mean, when you've got Craig Bellamy saying about, you've got to remember he was involved with the coaching staff at the time when we played Basel. Was it Basel? I never know. Anyway,
It's
when we
whatever you
played
want
them
it to be.
last, when we played Basel faulty last season, they couldn't figure out. The coaching staff couldn't figure out. This is how bad they were. No wonder they got rid of Pasco and Marsh really, but they couldn't figure out what Basel were doing. I mean, they really couldn't figure it out. And it was quite simple. It was just they were swapping between a back three and back four, depending on whether they had possession or didn't. When they had possession, they went to a back three. When they lost it, they went dropped back into a back four. And they studied this for the after the first game. This is the thing that gets me. Instead of before it, they studied it after the first game because because they couldn't figure out how they got hammered.
Mm.
And then after the second one, and they still, because they couldn't figure it out in between. I mean, how long does it take to figure these things out? He's meant to be he's meant to be a manager and a tactician. He should be able to see what they're doing
When it's
after five
happening.
minutes of watching them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he should be able to see it as it's going on. He should be able to see, oh God, look what they're doing. He shouldn't need to go back to it weeks later, and even then, when he tried to copy it, but what he did was he ended up with half-ass system of just a back three. He
Yeah.
ended up with a back three. I mean, it just seems like he doesn't have his own ideas. He just seems to take others and try and use them, like he did with the pressing system. I mean, that wasn't his either, was it? Let's be honest.
And like you say, he's done it
So,
half-assed because it's not about anymore.
yeah, well, it's just like he just because they're not his ideas. He's got no enthusiasm for them, so he doesn't want to keep to them, so he discards them and goes back to his principles that he wants to make work, which is the pass, 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 pass thing, which doesn't work. It's never been about that. I mean, people think that that's what Barcelona do, but it's not. It's all about what do you think? Messi's only there to pass.
The thing I
You've
love
got to
about
have
Barcelona, it's a very subtle thing they do. I mean, you can play the passes, which they do, but their key thing, how they wear. Brendan tries to wear the opposition down, or so he says, and he'll make the opposition chase the ball. But there's a key difference because our players aren't brave enough on the ball. They release it early. You watch a Barcelona midfield when they keep the ball. They wait. They put their back to the nearest opposition player, and they wait until, well, basically until they get a little kick on the back of the legs. Then they move the ball. They make the opposition come all the way to them before moving the ball.
It's not just that.
I think that's the key to it. I think there's no point doing early passes. I think you've got to sucker the opposition in. If you're trying to wear them out, you shouldn't be moving. You should be sucking them in. And
Yeah, exactly. But it's not just about releasing it too early as well. There's a lot of other things. I mean, it's passing in the wrong areas as well. If you're not passing in in the opposition half, if you're passing it around at the back where you're not hitting them, they're not chasing you because they don't care. And that's what we do under Rodgers. We pass it around at the back where nobody's bothered. So they're not chasing around. So you're not wearing them out. You need to move it further forward. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. And the only people getting tired out are your players.
Yeah,
because they're just
that's what I
standing
mean. If
back
you're
and
doing it
watching you.
in the opposition half, then they've got to press you and got to attack you, and that will tire them
Yeah,
out.
because otherwise you're
But
probing and you're creating a space.
yeah, and doing it in your own half, they think, oh, you can have the ball there. You're not going to hurt us. We'll watch Skirtle to Lovren 1-2, and then back to
Yeah.
Mignolet and a punt up to Benteke.
But
They'll watch that all day. They ain't going to chase that. They ain't going to. They
it's
just
just
ain't
the
going
old
to bother.
Liverpool system. Pass and move. Pass and move's all we did. And if there's a space to run into and you've got the ball, you run into it with the ball. You don't stand back and, like this was the thing Hansen did so well. Even when we did have it at the back passing it around, they couldn't afford to not press you. They couldn't afford to just let the centre backs have it and just sit back like they can with us now, because they knew Hansen could run 40 yards forward and play a pass through to rush, and it's
Well,
in the back of the net.
Hansen was a bit before my time, but would you say Agger was comparable to that? I remember Agger bringing the ball out quite a lot.
Agger was great, but not Hansen level.
No?
Hansen is a different beast altogether. Hansen was something special. He was just incredible. I always wanted to be Hansen as a kid. That's who I wanted to be. That's it. I never grew tall enough though, so I could never play at centre back. But that's who I always modelled my game on. And then Souness, when I realised I wasn't going to grow tall, so I just wanted to be like Souness.
What
The only
was
bit I
Souness
got
as
off
a
him
player
though
then?
was the kicking through people.
I say, what was Souness
Fortunately,
like as a player? Because once again, that's still a bit before my time. So, as a player, what was he like?
best midfielder I've ever seen, because he could do it all. He had the Gerrard shooting range, the passing quality. He got forward, he got back, he could defend, and he frightened the life out of everyone he played against. He's just terrified. You know what I mean? He was a proper. When that final we lost, the cup final we lost against Wimbledon,
Hmm.
if Souness had played, we'd have battered them, because the players wouldn't have stood up against Souness. But against McMahon, yeah, he was just a. I mean, he was good, McMahon, but he wasn't Souness. That was something special, that man.
Was he really that
Which
good?
is,
Yeah.
as a player, absolutely magnificent. Honestly, it's just special.
Is he
Really
your
was
highest
as a
rated ever
midfield.
player for Liverpool then? Ahead of Dalglish?
No, just the best midfielder.
Ah, okay.
Dalglish is the best I've ever seen.
See, once again,
Fowler pushes him close.
Fowler. See, there's someone I grew up watching, Fowler, and well, yeah, I mean, he were different gravy. It's a shame I never really got. I think because I was born in '91. I think is that when Kenny packed up 1990 player manager.
He was, didn't he pack up? I'm trying to remember. Wasn't it 89 he packed up
Was
as
it
player
89?
manager?
Is that where he
I
come
think.
on? He subbed himself on, didn't he, and scored in the cup final.
Yeah, it was the 89 Cup final he came, wouldn't it? It'd be against Everton.
It was, yeah.
So long. Yeah. Yeah, and that was his final appearance, wasn't it? He became
Yeah.
just a manager, didn't he? Yeah. So that was 89.
See, I weren't even born then. You see,
Jesus, now I feel old.
does that make you old? Yeah.
Yeah. Now I feel old. Talking about the good old days when we won things.
Wow. Yeah. Well, at least you got to see us win a title. I fear that will never happen for me.
Yeah, yeah. That's the sad thing is, I thought not last season, season before, really thought for a while, I allowed my hopes to get up for a while.
It was intense, wasn't it? I mean,
Oh, it's
the fans
fantastic to
outside
watch.
Anfield as they turned up to games and things like that. The fans just wanted it so much,
I
you know.
know, such a shame.
But anyway, let's
Uh,
not live in the past. We're here to talk about this season. So we don't think top four's gonna happen. Uh, we got any positives?
we have plenty of positives. I mean, you got the new coach and staff. They're a positive. You got Firmino. I mean, if you can't be positive about a player like that, then there's something wrong. You've got Sturridge when he comes back. I mean, he's kind of player in. Coutinho on his day,
But
bit
these
inconsistent.
players
I
then.
like.
So you say that, but then these players can get us top four. They are very good players.
I believe our squad's good enough to get top four. Yeah, I'm not disputing that. The problem isn't the squad. Problem
Brendan.
isn't the players. Yeah, sadly, that's what it always comes back to. If we had a better manager, a good manager, I think we'd be. I definitely feel confident of a top four finish.
Hmm.
But with Rodgers in charge, I'm
Well,
not in the slightest bit confident.
can you give
Um,
the viewers any hope? Did we show an interest in Klopp?
no, not officially at all.
I feel the soul has been sucked out of you as you say that.
I don't believe it. Just seems just bizarre to me. I just don't understand it. When Klopp's available, if you don't at least try, even if he turns you down, you've got to try. It's just madness when you're sacking all the coaching staff anyway.
Mm.
You may as well just go the whole hog and change the lot, mightn't you? It
You
just makes no
might,
sense.
there's no harm in sending him a WhatsApp, is there?
Well, exactly. You know.
Hey Jurgen, how are you? It's Ian here.
Yeah, maybe
just
best
a
if it
little,
didn't come from me.
just a
I'll
little.
let you have a go on me Harley. Just-
He could have said anything, couldn't he? Just let him know we're available. I think
I'll give you a backy on me Harley if you come and join us. Come on. You know you want it, Jurgen.
I would. I'd give him everything. I'd give him
Yeah,
Brendan's tan and his dentist, and
exactly.
I'll say the world's your oyster. I'd give him 300 million. I w- you know,
Ah, if he had spent 300 million over 3 years, we'd have already had the title, let's be honest.
God, yeah. I mean, the
We'd
man,
be
he's just got
defending
an
it.
aura about him. I mean, like I was telling you, I think he is the closest personality to Shanks.
He has got something about him, definitely. It's hard not to, it's hard not to fall in love with him when you see the way he deals with the cameras and the fans and all that. He's got that where he's definitely got a love for the game.
Mm.
Where it is about the game. And there's not many that are like that these days. I mean, it's like Sam Allardyce and Harry Redknapp. It's job to them.
Mm.
They do it for the money. They're not really bothered about it. They're not doing it for the love of the football as such. They love the. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure they love it, but they're doing it for the money. Let's be honest. And they're off getting hammered out here in Dubai every week. Every summer on the yachts. Seriously, that's. It's not really a labour of love for them. They like it, but it's more about ego for them.
Klopp seems to
Um,
just breathe and live football.
Yeah, and he's Bielsa's another one. He's a mad genius, and I know he's left Marseille under a cloud, but he loves football and he's obsessed with it. And I tell you the other one, Unai Emery,
Mm.
the Sevilla manager, he's another one, and Monchi at Sevilla. Why on earth we didn't? I don't care what it took. Get him. If there's anyone out there that could turn us into a title contenders, Monchi would be the best man to help him.
So you want a Monchi and Klopp duo?
Oh, that'd be the dream ticket, mate. I, I was reading about an interview with Ivan Rakitic after he joined Barcelona, and he was talking about Monchi, and he was saying about how mad he is and how he's absolutely obsessive. And he was saying because obviously Rakitic is Croatian,
Mm.
so you'd think, he knows a fair bit about the youngsters in Croatian football and that. He keeps a close eye on the game back home. But he's saying Monchi would be over to him and, be on the training pitch. And he'd be talking about some 16-year-old superstar in Croatia, as he was putting it like. And he'd know everything about the lad. Everything from what he had for breakfast, who his family were, you know, what kind of lifestyle he led, everything, and whether they were the right lad for. You know what I mean? He literally
Mm.
researched every facet of the player before he'd consider making a bid. And that's what you need. You need an obsessive. Paisley lived and breathed it. Shankly lived and breathed football. I remember, and Nessie used to go on, they used to go on, their days out together was to go and watch football. When it was her birthday, he took her to watch a reserve game. Was it Huddersfield Reserves or something? There's that famous quote about his
Oh,
anniversary.
is it
And they said,
Rochdale, isn't
is
it,
it
or something?
I can't remember
I
now,
think
but
it's
there's a
something about
famous quote where he
Rochdale.
said, yeah, take her to see for her anniversary. And he's
Yeah.
like, do you think I'd have got married during the football
Yeah, that's
season?
it, that's it, yeah.
You know what I mean? Just talk about a stupid question. Of course it wasn't an anniversary. It was her birthday, and I took her for a present to watch Rochdale Reserves or whatever. I'm sure she really appreciated that. Like, no, she did love football, to be fair. She was still going after he passed
Mm.
because she used to take our May, a friend of the family, after she retired from Anfield, her May didn't get tickets to go to games, but Nessie used to get 2 tickets from the club every game, every home game. So she used to take our friend May along, and they used to go, and they loved it. Absolutely loved it. She was obsessive as well, Nessie. So that's the kind of person Bill was. Though he was obsessed with it. It was football, football, football even after he left, people, the famous quote about he wouldn't, if Everton were playing at the bottom of the garden, I'd draw the curtains. After we'd stopped him coming to Melwood for obvious reasons, like, to stop confusing the players,
Yeah.
he used to regularly go along to Everton.
Yeah.
That's where he was. So he couldn't bear to be away from it. Whereas I just don't get that vibe from Brendan Rodgers.
He said, retired from Liverpool, yes. Retired from football, no. And,
Yeah, exactly. Do
he
you see
lived the
that from
game, and you
Rodgers?
just won't see it with Brendan, as you say. He's too busy. If you're the Liverpool manager, I'm sorry, but you don't have time to have an affair. You don't have time for fake tan. You don't have time to get your nose straightened. You don't have time to whiten your teeth. You know, you should be out. If the first team ain't playing or training, you should be watching the under 21s. If they ain't got a game, you should be watching the under 18s. If they ain't, under 16s. If no Liverpool team are playing, you should be out watching potential targets. And you're
Opposition or
24/7
watching
when you're a
video,
Liverpool manager. Do you know what I mean?
looking over the stats. Yeah, the only thing you should be doing when you're not, the only thing you should have time for when you're managing Liverpool that's not Liverpool related is sleep. That's it. Shouldn't have time to do anything else.
I bet
I really
Shanks even
worry when
dreamt about Liverpool in his sleep, didn't he?
I should hope so. I mean, you shouldn't have time to do anything else. I mean, it's an all-consuming job. It's not a job that you do get time off from. It really isn't. It's a life.
Mm.
And that's unfortunately I don't see that. And I think that's the problem with Rodgers. I think that's why he's not developed from the coach into a great manager
Yeah.
that everyone, that people were thinking he might well be. I just don't think he will because he's not devoted enough to
I
it.
mean, I'll be honest. When he come in and he fed me his lines, and I thought, is this the reincarnation of Shanks? I mean, the stuff all he talked about was the supporters. He, I think we changed the kit back, didn't we? And he put red goal nets up, and he put the "This is Anfield" sign back to the original, and he just tried to make it all about traditional, about the old days, and and then over the years, his words have become hollow, and the more nonsense he talks is, a knife in the back every time. It just makes me grind my teeth listening to him now, and I don't know where he lost me along the way, but I was his biggest fan, and my friends mock me now for when I put him down because I used to say he was the best thing since sliced bread, and now I just can't stand the bloke. I think he's embarrassing, and I think that's the biggest thing. It's not even about the football no more. I think his press conferences, how he acts, and what he's doing in his personal life is just embarrassing.
I think he's just got too big for his boots.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? He's forgotten that he's serving the club. And he thinks he's in, he thinks that one season is enough to make him untouchable. I think last year really brought him down to earth with a bump, but you just have to hope that's enough.
So,
unfortunately, I'm not sure it is.
Could you think that we're all under a curtain and we've only kept Rodgers on because Klopp wanted a year out and we're going to go in for him in the summer, next summer?
I wish, but no.
No, not at all. No hope there.
Oh no, I mean the thing is, there was lots of things coming out from the Klopp camp. There's people I know that know Klopp that have said that he might have been interested. You know what I mean? If the right offer was there, he was looking for a job like Liverpool, was the way it was put. That was the kind of challenge he was looking for. But yet the club did nothing about it. I don't get it. They just seem to have decided they were going to stick with Brendan all along. It just seems. I mean, we knew they were going to overhaul the coaching staff. Just
Surely
didn't know exactly what they were going to do.
Top four though.
His target's top four, but his target was top four last season, and he still kept his job. So
yeah, but
I don't know.
He had the excuse of bedding in players. That would have been his excuse this summer, and he would have used Sturridge as his injury as an excuse, and they would have, I'm sure he's got a whole sheet of excuses, but I see no excuses for next summer. I mean, even if Sturridge is injured, you've got Benteke, you've got all these other players. All the ones from last summer, they've had time to bed in. There's no excuses now.
Isn't it? Because he's brought in, 7, 8 players again? And the coaching staff are all fresh and new. It's transition, mate.
It's a transition every year.
Exactly. That's the problem. We're buying too many players. You should be only buying... understand the first season, you need to buy a lot because you've got to change it from the previous manager's style and you want your own players in. But after that first window or two, maybe 3 at a push, after that, I mean, this is the 4th season and he's still buying 7, 8 players. There's no need for that. It's bad management if you're doing that.
I think the alarm banner should have rang when we spent his first 2 signings, 25 million on Barini and Joe Allen.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean,
that's the alarm bells right there.
Well, it's not so much that you bought them, it's when you look back at what he's done with them. This is where your problem lies. It's not the fact that he's bought players, but you can understand every manager makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect, and that comes down to scouting as well. And you've got to say the scouts have to hold their hands up, and that's been overhauled. But the problem is he's not using them correctly, and that's where you've got to question him. Is what the hell is he doing with it? I mean, he bought Ilori in.
I was going to say this will bring us back to Ilori.
And Sacco, and there's how many other players can you say? Barini. I mean, bring him in. Why didn't you play him?
Well,
what's he doing with him? Lambert. What the hell was that all about? Well, what's he doing with him? He never gave him a chance.
I know. It just like we said earlier, it just winds you up about not playing a striker at Stoke. You wanted Lambert, Yeah, you may not want Balotelli, but you've got to have signed off on the deal. They wouldn't have just lumped him with you. and then you just
And he
play
didn't
none of them.
force. Why didn't he take Remy? I mean, I'm not a fan of Remy. I don't think he was the answer. I
What
mean, why
actually
not go
happened
for?
there? Because he had his
It
medical,
was
didn't he?
yes, he had his medical, and Brendan changed his mind. Decided he didn't want him
Well, at what point did he change his mind?
after the medical when it's all done.
Was there something
I
in the
mean, he was
medical, or was it just?
no, he never really. He wasn't really Brendan's first choice. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? It wasn't the one he wanted, but the club got the deal put together anyway because he was a possibility. And rather than just saying, "Well, we'll take him," because the other ones, he just decided, "No, I don't want him." It's like they just why, why didn't he say that before the medical? You know what I mean? If you don't want him, don't let it get that
Well, I
far.
think I'll be honest. What I think happened is it all went a bit fast, and Brendan bottled it, and he needed an excuse to get out of it. So, though the club didn't confirm anything in the medical, we all were led to believe something went wrong in the medical. I mean, there were stories about his heart or something or other.
But yeah, there was all sorts of stories put out the only thing you can imagine is it was coming out of his camp because he was the one that was, it was his mates that were spreading it.
Hmm.
So it does suggest it was him trying to put a gloss, put a good face
That's
on
what I
the
think.
fact
I
that he's
think he tried to save embarrassment that that he changed his mind. So I think that's the only reason. I think he knew before the medical, but he thought if he lets the medical go ahead, people spin their own stories that that there's something wrong with the medical, and I don't come out looking like a complete and utter buffoon for wasting everybody's time.
The problem with Brendan is his worst problem is that he's not just on it. He's just not honest enough.
Hmm.
That's the worst thing about it. Because players cope with a manager saying, "Look, you're not. I don't want you in the team. You've got to go." That happens every day.
Yeah.
Players get moved on and that. The problem is when they're told, "Yeah, you're going to get games," and then, it's not that they've just changed their mind or found somebody else. They just don't pick them, and that's when you start having problems. When that happens to one, well, that's just one player getting short end of the stick. Like, but this is happening to 8 or 9 players now.
And that's why
I mean, he
Sinclair's
brought
asked
in,
to leave.
yeah, I mean, the Sinclair one. I mean, he gave him a few games at the end of the season, and then he's telling him, yeah, next season you're gonna get, you're gonna get a bit more of a chance. You're gonna get, okay, you'll at least be on the bench and you'll get a few starts in cup games and all that. And then he signs all these strikers. I mean, and then the lad's saying to him,
Origi and
well,
Danny
what chance
Ings
am I
are
going to
referring
get? And
to.
he's saying, none. You're going out on loan. You're not going to get a chance. We're going to send you out on loan instead. And he's saying, well, what's the point? Because we're buying players that are 20, 21, 22, 23. When I come back, they're still going to be young players.
I mean,
What
there's
chance
not.
have I got?
That's it. There's not an actual player that's gone out like you'll say but at the end of the day, he was forced to play because we didn't get the deal for Danny Ings done in January. So, I mean, what player has actually gone out on loan and done well enough for them to come back and then play? I mean, you think Jack Wilshere, he had a good loan, and Danny Sturridge had a good loan, and they went and got games, and then. But Brendan, I mean, Ilori, by all accounts,
Watch them.
he did he get good
He
reviews
just,
on loan?
yeah, he did. But Brendan doesn't watch them on loan. We know this. We know he doesn't do that.
Hmm.
He doesn't watch him. He has a report. The club automatically, they have scouts watching him. But Ferguson, I mean, I hate to use him as an example because obviously he's not the most likable guy and all that. But one thing you know with him is that when he got the chance and Man United weren't playing and his players were out on, he would go and have a look at them. He'd go along and watch them when he could, or he'd keep in touch with them, or someone from the club would be letting Ferguson know how they were getting on and that. He wouldn't just forget about them. Whereas Rodgers doesn't seem to have that same. It's just like send them out on loan, get them out my air sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's not. But he doesn't even go along to watch the youth teams. I mean, what's that all about? How can you not go along? Even Roberto Martinez does that, and he's one of the worst managers in football history. You
He was
know,
almost ours, wasn't he?
well, no, the thing they narrowed it down to him and Brendan Rodgers, and neither of them would take the job as a with a director of football.
Yeah.
So they spoke to both. Obviously, all the pictures were with Roberto Martinez, but they decided to go with Brendan Rodgers. So he was only, he was never first choice. But if he'd have been willing to come with a director of football, he could have been. He could have been the one that we ended up with. Luckily,
Well,
he didn't.
well, I'll tell you what. If you know what were we, if we had this idea of a young manager and a director of football, who do we have on the shortlist for a director of football role?
Well, we were trying to get a few. I mean, we tried to get Clough. We was, David Dean was advising the club at the time on this, and there was a few of them. We tried to get Johan Cruyff, but he wouldn't leave. I think it was Ajax, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's that. And there was a few others as well that we tried to get. Off the top of my head, I can't think of the name, but I have to look that up now because that's going to bug me. Yeah. So this was the idea, but the thing I don't get, and this is what I don't understand, is Brendan Rodgers turned down, refused to do it unless he was a manager. Yeah, he always goes on about wanting to manage in Spain. There's not one club in Spain that doesn't run with a director of football. So who's he going to go there to manage? None of them are going to get.
Even in Spain will want him anyway now, will they?
Well, not now, but even if he'd won as the Champions League 3 times in a row, he might have had a chance. But they're not going to take him anyway. They're not going to take him as a manager. He'd be a head coach.
He's already got the tan for Spain. Maybe that's what he's doing, trying to acclimatise.
Oh yeah. He won't. At least he won't have to worry about getting sunburnt.
What? Okay, right. We've kind of wandered off topic. We'll clamber back on.
Was a topic?
I think it was somewhat what we're expecting this year. So, we don't think we're going to get top 4 because of the manager. We think the players are good enough. We don't think the manager is. I think a lot of viewers will agree with that. And then, secondly, is he going to get sacked if he don't get top 4?
I have this fear that he'll stay in the job, to be honest, even if we don't get top 4, unless we have an absolute disaster, stinker of a season again, in which case, yeah, he'll be gone. But, if we just miss out on top 4, I think he'll stay. And I don't understand why, but, they've hung him up to dry already by changing his coaching staff, really. I mean, what?
Whose decision was
that? It's
that?
difficult to really judge him now on this season, is the problem. And that's what will keep him in the job. Because he can just say, look, you've changed my coaching staff, it's all new, we're in a season of transition, brought all these players in, they've all got to gel and get used to each other. He'll get away with it again. That's what worries me.
I mean,
that really does worry me. If he gets top 4, then fine, he deserves to keep his job.
Yeah, because it's hard to break into top 4, as we know. So, as much as we can put him down, I mean, if he does do well and does get top 4, then we got to give him credit. I'm just going to say, who was responsible for the sackings of Marsh and Pascoe?
Mike Gordon.
Mike Gordon.
Yeah, he was in charge of all the review. He made all the decisions, changing coaching staff, scouting staff, etc.
Then what did
He's now running the club.
Did he not look into Brendan? Was Brendan sick the day he was meant to be looked at?
I don't understand what's happened there. I mean, you don't change the coaching staff and leave the man who's responsible for choosing them in place.
No sense. Well,
it doesn't.
We touched on O'Driscoll earlier. Was that Brendan's choice?
Yeah, that's one he chose, and I've got to give him credit for that because it's an excellent choice. It's someone I rate personally and have done for years.
And we've already seen, like you say, defending set pieces, and you also tell me that the young lad Joe Gomez, he's an O'Driscoll pick.
Yeah, O'Driscoll recommended him. He'd worked with him at, I think it was England under which was it? He was England under-19 coach, wasn't he?
Hmm.
O'Driscoll prior to us, and that's where he saw him play, and really rated him, and he's been pushing him, and that's how he's ended up in the first team as well, because O'Driscoll champions him, loves him, absolutely loves him as a lad as well as a player. Because this is another thing that worries me about Brendan. He doesn't do background checks on the players as such. You know what I mean? Like I was saying about Monty, knows everything about the players he's scouting and looking into and that. We don't. We don't know enough about them. We're not checking out their family history. You know what I mean? How they've grown up, what kind of influences they hang around with. That's why we ended up with a player like Balotelli, because we're
I
not
was going to say,
doing
I
enough.
mean, I don't even need to do a background check on Balotelli to know he'd be a
Ah,
flop.
true. But O'Driscoll's one of those that he likes to do he likes the right kind of person as well as quality player. You know what I mean? It's not just about how good they are. They've got to be the right kind of person as well.
That's, I do a little bit of football managing, and that is the biggest thing. It's to create a group, you know, where they can have their own separate friends by all means, but when they come to football, they've all got the same ideas. They're all similar characteristics, and they want to work together. They want to help each other, and if O'Driscoll can sort of blend players into that, and choose the right people with the right attitude, then why is he not our manager?
Well, I did say a few years ago I wouldn't have minded him, but like he's not got the problem with O'Driscoll is he's like Paisley manager. He's he's one of those where he's in the background. Bob Paisley was never at the forefront, and these days you just can't manage like that. I don't think. You know what I mean? You need to be a personality. That's what you need to be a manager of the Premier League these days with Sky and all that. You just can't get away with being a quiet, retiring type of person. And O'Driscoll doesn't really want the limelight. He just wants to play get involved with football, not really play it at his age. I don't think. Mind, it never stopped Shankly playing on it. I was listening to some Gordon Milne was saying about coming back from a cup final, and they were at Euston Station, the Liverpool squad, waiting for their train, and they had like hour to wait or something. And where's Shankly? And he's there he's playing football on the platform with Liverpool fans. That's what he was like, And that's the kind of player. But you need to have a personality like Jose and Mourinho, and that you have to be there in the forefront because you have to deal with the media constantly. So you can't be like O'Driscoll, who's quiet and he's not outgoing enough for a managerial role. That's why he's perfect as a coach.
Yeah.
He's perfect for what he is. Assistant manager is the perfect role for him.
So
You
then,
need someone like Klopp now above him.
well, we can dream. So that's definitely one positive to look out for then, O'Driscoll for the next season. We
Yeah,
got
and
5 minutes to
Gareth
go. Let's have a little talk about the news this week. Shall we start with Eva?
what about John Fern as well? Or does Eva only count because she's good looking? So you want to talk
Well,
about her?
I'm sure that's the one the posters want to hear about.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's clearly something going on for a while there. Something's been brewing because you could see there was something brewing. But like, let's face it, no one would care if she wasn't good looking. Let's be perfectly honest.
Well,
Would
I read
anyone
a
even
comment. I did read a comment that just summed it up. It's not if Jose Mourinho lost a match, Eva's not going to go into changing rooms and tell him what formation he should be playing. Just like he's not a doctor, he should, leave him to it. The referee's called her on. What more can she do, Mourinho says, oh, yeah, in hindsight, he was fine, it was just a trip. But you can never be too safe, surely.
And for me, I think the problem there is you should be saying, well, why the hell wasn't Hazard jumping up then and getting on with it?
Well, yeah, you got to
There's
blame
nothing
the
wrong with
player.
him. Yeah, exactly. I just don't see the issue. The issue with what the doctors did. No, they did their job. the problem there is the player should have jumped up and got on with it, and that's who he should have been angry with, and probably was angry with. But he's not going to have a go at Hazard because he's the star man.
Yeah, I mean, I remember UEFA. They were talking about. I think it was Platini. He said about doing when you have to have a medical staff come on, some sort of 2 minute sin bin, to stop all the feigning around and things like that. What do you reckon to
Well,
that idea?
I've always said that what they should do is, instead of the medical staff going on to them, they should just send on the stretcher bearers, take them off, and then be treated on the sidelines and carry on just get the game restarted while they're treated. Who's going to go off there? Who's going to bother feigning an injury if it's not time wasting?
If they've got to be carried off every time.
Yeah, just get them straight off. Don't mess about. Just get them. And obviously, there's cases where you can't.
Well, yeah,
like
head injuries and neck injuries,
proper
bad
injury.
falls.
Yeah. But if it's an injury, you take them off, and they've got to be treated off the pitch, and then they're not let on until the referee decides. So you could end up stood on the sideline for 5 minutes.
I'm just picturing
waiting
bed
for the
knobs
ref
and
to
broomsticks with the old vultures running on with the stretcher. Get them on,
God,
get the players, and get them off.
Trust you to say to that, eh?
Well, that's a brilliant
I knew
film.
you were young, but I didn't realise you're still watching Disney films, eh?
I just see it now. You're gonna have Eva's not gonna know whether to come on or not now. It's just gonna look like them vultures. Come jogging on, they get sent away.
Well, she won't be there, will she? She's not on the bench now, is she? She's been kicked off.
Yeah, I guess he's got an ego. He's gonna stick to that, isn't he?
Well, Aaron Finn, no, he's moved them off. He's got to though, hasn't he? Really, he said it now.
Yeah.
He's got to he's got to stand by it, or.
But once again,
the players will question is it?
He's doing what he's brilliant at. He's taken the game Chelsea were awful in away from the talking points.
Yeah, but I don't think that was the plan that time. I really don't. I think that was a genuine reaction. When you see him on the sidelines when she's running on, and you see when she runs past him, and the other guy, John Fern, runs past him, and he spots them, screaming at them. You can see him, and he runs on the pitch.
I've seen the clip, yeah.
You can see that's not that's a genuine reaction. That is, he's definitely unhappy.
With it,
so this isn't about the result.
Yeah.
This was about the what's happened. And this is obviously something that's been brewing, and he's obviously upset with them anyway because he's with the Costa's hamstrings, and that are a bit of a problem. So he's obviously already had a bit of a falling out with them. Because half the time Costa's not played, it's on their it's on their instructions. So yeah, you can see this is going to be a major problem. But I mean, it happens. It happened in Germany. Look at the way Guardiola reacted to what's his name, the German team doctor that ended up walking out. Is it Muller-Wohlfahrt or something? I can't remember his name now.
Sounds German enough, yeah.
Yeah, they walked out on Bayern Munich, the medical staff, after the way Pep Guardiola had a similar kind of tantrum. Almost exactly the same it was last season. And they all walked out on the club because of it. So, it happens. I mean, it's always going to be because the managing, the playing staff are, the coaching staff are being told by the physios and the doctors not to play players they want to pick because they're injured.
Yeah.
See, there's always going to be friction between them. It's a difficult line to, you've got this where the coaching staff want these players, and the medical staff are saying, oh, no, they're not fit enough to play. There's always going to be arguments. Of course he is. I've just seen him running. Yeah, but he's not really fit enough. He needs a bit more rest.
Yeah.
It's always going to happen.
Right. Fair points. So, you got 40 seconds left. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Only good luck to Carlo Wanchop. I feel sorry for him. Looked to me like he was just defending himself. And if he wants a job, he can come in and deal with a contract at Liverpool. So the next time a Raheem Sterling situation evolves, we'll just send them in a room with Paolo Wanchop to sort out their contract. I bet they won't be too happy to hand in a transfer request then.
Brilliant. It sounds ideal. So, I'm Benny Baller, and that is Ed01. We hope you enjoyed our first podcast. And, leave your comments, and hopefully we can make another one for you. Any topics you want discussed, or any stories you want to hear from Ed01, let us know. Ed, one final word from you.
One. Can I keep it to one?
Was that it?
I don't think I can.
That was it. Thanks very much for listening. Cheers.